Good afternoon, and welcome to the fourth week of Speaking with Gas. I'm Jackie Root, and this is brought to you by GasWellGuru, always the advocate for the landowner owning oil and gas rights in Pennsylvania. So this week we have one topic that's going to be a regular and a new topic to talk about. First of all, we have the monthly production report that came out on the 15th of October. And then, and I'll talk about a couple of wells that are in that report, talk about the top 20 wells. And then something I get a lot of questions about in my consulting business is selling oil and gas rights. And so I'm going to just talk a few minutes about that. First of all, we're going to jump into the top 20 wells for this month. And I'm going to put up the top 20 well report. As I talked about in our first edition, this is a report that I create from what the state puts out. I have manipulated this report. I don't know if that's a good way to say it, but manipulated this report to better explain the production on these wells. So I seem to have lost the ability to scroll down. Here we go. Okay. So this particular report has some calculations made and some columns moved around. The top well this month is this Conrine, and I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. That's the name of the pad. And then the well is MOR 40NHSU, and there's certain things that a lot of those letters will designate. It's different with every company. You see number 2 on there is Pale Ale, and we talked about that well last month because it was actually the first well, the top well in the production. And then as you go across the columns, we have the county, the township, permit number, the client. So we have a variety of companies here. You see a lot of the same companies in this top 20 well report, of course. The quantity, the days that it actually produced. So interestingly, on this Conrine, this was only the top well was only 13 days of production. And that well came in production to begin with the month before July, and it was 27 days in July. The well was actually spud in October of 2022, and you can see that information there. None of the wells in this report, the top 20 wells in this report, were spud any earlier than 2022, so they're all relatively new wells. That well did 48 million cubic feet a day, and that's one of those calculations that I put into this. We have the quantity that the well produced in that month, but then the factor that's limiting is how many days it produced. So if you had actually divided this one out by the 31 days in the month, you would have had less. So this well produced 48 million a day in those 13 days. And then as you look down through, there are a couple other ones that had a few days. So that means either the well came in production in that month and produced a partial month, or it was shut in for some reason, whatever. It did look like that well was on and off, at least in the beginning. And we'll, if that's your well, you'll follow it as it goes on. You'll want to know if it's producing or not producing. And you can see that in these reports. So that million cubic feet per day is the what I go by to look at one well against another. You'll see that we've got the high producing counties that are in this top 20 report: Greene, Bradford, Washington, Susquehanna, Wyoming, and Butler. And you will see some other counties on that high production report from time to time, and there are further down. There were actually let's see where I put that number. 12,808 active wells in August, which is what this month production report is for, and 11,225 of those were producing. So this is just the top 20. And you'll see the counties vary a little bit, and the production companies. So in this, I'm going to look at a couple of wells. Last month, we looked at the Pale Ale, which was in Western PA. Again, we've got the top well coming from Western Pennsylvania. So I decided to go down the list and talk about a well also from Bradford County. So I'm going to talk about this Conrine and the VRGC BRA, which stands for Bradford, in case you're wondering. In Wilmot Township, Bradford County. So the first one that I'll talk about was the highest producing. And what I have here is, let's see, let me make sure I'm sharing this. Okay. Nope, wrong county. Going to share. Okay, here we go. Okay, this is the location plat for that well. This is the first page of it. Of course, this well pad with the circle around it that talks about water sources within a certain distance of the well. And then you get to page 2, and the important thing to know here is the deepest formation to be penetrated and probably produced is going to be the Point Pleasant. And the Point Pleasant, in this case, lies just above the Utica Formation. So if you look at this, in this area, the vertical depth of this well is 12,703 feet. They're going to drill a total of 28,253, and the lateral on this one is actually 15,000 feet. And now we're going down to the location plat. And this actually says right on it that the lateral is proposed horizontal section is 15,000 feet. Something you'll note here says that it shows that the well bore is has a buffer around it of 330 feet either side. That's because the wells below the Onondaga horizon, which a Utica or Point Pleasant are, is a conservation well. So that means that they cannot, this is the only place that there's any intersection between leasing and the state. And there's a box you have to check when you apply for this permit that says all the rights are leased within 330 feet of that well. And so this is denoted on the map. Shows where the wellbore goes as you go on down. That's the aerial view of it. And then this next document is the side view. And when you look this well up, and I'll show you where that one is located in a moment, in Greene County. When you look that well pad up, it actually shows that there's 8 wells on that pad, and here they are. But they're talking about this blue lateral here. And it looks like it's the longest one to date that they've permitted for that pad. And then this is probably hard to see, but as you blow it up and looking closer, I mentioned that this was a Point Pleasant well. And it's not letting me go sideways here. The Point Pleasant lies just above the Utica. They generally are right together, and my understanding is even kind of intermingled a bit at places. And this is a very straight lateral according to this, and you'll see in the next well how that's different. Something I want to point out before we go to the next well in Bradford County, this particular location plat, and I'm going to give credit where credit is due. I see location plats from a lot of counties or companies, and I would like to see them have a certain obligation as far as what information they provide. Now, this map shows road names. Here's Etten Church Road, Newland School Road. Then you see all the property boundaries. You could match this up with your property and pretty easily know where your property lies in relation to this wellbore. And so I want to, give this company an A+ for this location plat, CNX Energy, because as a landowner, you can look at this, you're not going to get notice of any of this stuff unless you're the person with the wellbore on their property with the pad. And so determining if this well actually is going to affect your oil and gas rates, this is what's going to tell you that. And so you can easily determine that. In the southwestern part of the state, there are other operators, and I won't name any names without actually looking at their location plats, but they'll come up in future months. Sometimes this is a line on a blank page, pretty much. It will have the latitude and longitude, but that's not really any help to the average landowner that wants to see where that wellbore goes in relation to the property. Sometimes there aren't even road names on it. So, the company knows where that's going, and DEP can plot where that's going, but I think that should be readily available to landowner. And I guess this is kind of going backwards, but I'll also go to this map and show you where that well is actually located in the county. And this is the map here, shows Rich Hill Township, and I say that was in Greene County, and that's where the well is located. This is actually a map on the DEP website where I searched just that well number. So with that map, if I click this identify, click that well, it's going to pull up a box, unless it's not working properly. It'll pull up a box with information on that one well. But actually, there are 8 wells on the pad, and if you zoom into that with all the wells, just into that location, you'll be able to pull up all those wells and easily go to the data from all of those. So while we are on that map, I'm going to switch to the Bradford County well. And let's see. And here is the location of that well. And that's the VRGC 4HC. And this shows what I was just talking about. Here's all the wells in the area, and I've just picked out that one. This is the particular well we're talking about, but in this information box, it shows here up to the top, there are 5 wells on that pad in some state. Here's a well that was spud in 2011. I apologize. I think I had some people come into the call that maybe couldn't get in. Okay, whoops. Oh, I put that away. Let me go back there again. Here we go. Okay, so there's 5 wells. If you scroll across the top here, the second well is the one I'm going to talk about that was on that list of high producing wells. That one was spud in 2022. the next well, number 3 in 2022. So it looks like out of the 5, we have one that was, done. It was an older well. They came back now, and they have further development on that. And let me see if that first well, I don't want to go to the production report. It was spud and it doesn't show any record of being plugged. So that one may have been in production. That would be an interesting comparison. But here's that well right adjacent, right north of state game lands in Wilmot Township, Bradford County. Here's the Susquehanna River, right up next to the Terry Township line. This well is a Marcellus well. And the Marcellus, to date, there have not been any successful Utica wells in Bradford or Susquehanna, in that core area. There's been a lot of them in Tioga County, Utica wells, and there was one that was completed in Bradford County that I'm aware of, and one that was tested a little further east in Bradford County, and I believe the last time I looked there, that one had actually been plugged. So, I hate to say this on record, but, the information that I have is that the Utica is too deep and overpressured that far east. So where in Tioga County, we have some pads with Marcellus, less productive than over here, Burkett and Utica. The Utica is the wells that are producing larger numbers in some parts of Tioga County. And then when you get over in Susquehanna, you've got multiple layers of Marcellus because it's so much thicker. So that's going down a different path here, maybe another discussion. So here's the location plat. Looks a little different. These are not standardized. First page of it showing the water sources in proximity of the well bore. And then you get to page 2, and this will tell you it's a Marcellus well, that the Marcellus, the vertical depth is going to be 7,590 feet. And the total measured depth for the total well bore is 20,502. And then I calculated that the well bore itself from the kickoff or the landing point to the bottom hole is going to be 13,435 feet. So not much different than that Utica well in Greene County. The biggest difference there is that that well was another 4,000 or 5,000 feet deep. So I want to move along here. I do have to be off the call promptly at 12:30, and I want to get into that last topic. So this well bore looks a little different. When I said to note that how straight the other one was, this well bore kind of meanders. And I don't have a reason for that for you. That's something I need to delve a little into. You'll notice there are some boundaries here about what they have leased and don't lease. Doesn't really make a difference with Marcellus. The state doesn't care about that. There is a note in red down here that says this tract boundary is not a unit boundary and will not determine royalties. That always creates a lot of questions for landowners, and you would hope that it wouldn't determine royalties because of the odd shape of it. But here, you have the pad. They drilled back to this kickoff point where they started the turn, and then made the turn, arrived at the landing point where in the formation, and then drilled. And they're denoting these waypoints where actually there's some change in the trajectory of the wellbore till you get to the bottom hole down here. There's a lot of information here where I talked about giving the other company an A+, CNX. This is Chesapeake. I have to say the same thing. You can easily look at this, see where property boundaries are. And if you only own the subsurface and the property boundaries of your oil and gas rights, you can tell if that wellbore is going to impact them and how. There are also on this one, now the other one just had boundaries. It didn't give names. This one has numbers. All these little numbers in the circles, those reference parcels. And so the number one parcel's Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Right there's the one. It's the biggest tract in here. And it has a actual plat number on it. So you can actually tell what properties are included. And then this is the side view of that well, showing you that trajectory, the turn, and where they're into the formation. So there's two wells, one in southwestern PA, one in northeast. They're in the top 20 wells. There's lots more that you can explore with those, how much they're producing per foot, etc. That's a topic for another day. So now I'm going to go back to the remainder of the presentation in just a few minutes. I said I was going to talk about selling your oil and gas rights. And the reason that I bring this up is this is something I get a lot of calls about. And there's a wide range of questions. Sometimes it's just curiosity. No one has any intention of selling their rights. And a lot of times in my consulting business, people ask the ins and outs of it. Sometimes I'll do reports for them. And very seldom do they decide that that's what they want to do. Not because I'm talking them out of it, but because, you know, maybe in the oil and gas play, that's the best way to look at it is that maybe you shouldn't sell your oil and gas rights. But everyone's financial situation, who's going to end up with their property, those situations are all different. When I'm pretty new to this game, and, you know, back in, I think 1998, First Landman approached us, you know, an old gas well pipe on the property from the 40s, certainly had some interest in it, did a lot of research, but didn't know a lot about what owning oil and gas rights meant. Certainly lots of people in Pennsylvania did in the shallow conventional gas regions. But a few years out, I joined the National Association of Royalty Owners and traveled across the country, met a lot of people I'm still in touch with, wealth of information about it. And one of the things that I would hear over and over and over again from people who had, whose families had owned oil and gas rights for decades, you know, depending on the family, that could go back a couple centuries, was you never sell your oil and gas rights. So, you know, I always have that in the back of my head. It's a long game. You never know. I remember meeting people who had rights in the Permian Basin way back in Texas, really not doing anything, but they owned them. Some states taxed them, so they did have to keep up with those things. But, you know, down the road, Permian Basin and oil production became the next big boom. And so you just don't know. And if those people had sold their rights, that would have been the end. So the questions I get about that are, you know, I've been getting offers in the mail. What's the going rate? Because the offers will say all kinds of things. A lot of times they'll say, you know, we're paying up to $12,000 an acre for your oil and gas rights. And when you actually explore that and they explore your lease and your property, what they come back with may be much less. What I tell people is, first of all, they need to consider what selling them means. If you own your property fee simple, so you own the surface and the oil and gas rights, if you sell them, and you sell all of them, whoever you sell them to is going to have the right to develop, unless you've restricted that in the deed, which lessens the value of it, or, you know, maybe they're not interested at all. But if you don't retain any of those rights, they have the right to come and develop, and that can impact your surface in a large way and not necessarily give you any benefit from it. So, you know, you've given up a lot of control over that. If you only own the oil and gas rights, you know, there's lots of people that just deal in that. They're not necessarily concerned with the surface rights. It's not always the case, but it is often. That's where the new pad drilling can have major benefits there. And that, you know, with shallow well drilling, you know, having very dense wells to recover the oil and gas was a big impact on the surface. Now, these types of wells with, anywhere's up to 20,000 foot laterals, maybe a little more, you have a lot less impact, greater impact where it is, but a lot less as far as the number of property owners. But you do have to consider that. Another thing to consider is, if your property is already leased, the type of lease that you have and whether or not it allows deductions, et cetera, those things are going to be important to the company buying the rights and will affect the value. You can, if you're interested in selling, you can find information in the courthouses for the most part, because that is a deed to property that should be taxed, transfer tax. It should be recorded. Sometimes it's a little harder to find it. But those transactions, you can see the number of acres sold and the price per acre. So, you really do need to research it if you're going to do it, if you want to get the going rate. And I've seen some deals where people have signed for much less than the going rate. And I think that they probably didn't do their due diligence in any way, shape, or form, and sold themselves short. In one case, I saw it was a municipality, and I think that's going to bite someone down the road big time. Something quite recent. If you are going to sell it, you want to look at multiple buyers. You may want to look at an auction site. You want to make sure that you can get the best deal. And, what I end up telling people is it's a long game. If there's some reason that, they have no heirs to the property, so they really, they want to take the money and run and make this their padding their retirement or taking care of whatever they need to, well, then, maybe that's the best decision. And these are the tools you need to make it the best transaction you can. But, you consider this is a long game, decades, maybe longer. Who knows? Who knows what the mix of renewable and fossil fuel energy will be in the future, but I'm pretty confident we're going to need a lot of energy in the future, and so this is going to be here for some time. So you want to get the best deal for whatever your use is going to be down the road, whether it's your retirement or whether it's your grandchildren. And that's when I talk to people, if they intend to leave this to their children and grandchildren, you want that to have the most value going down the road. So it's a long game. People that are in the business, I'll say it again, they say never sell your oil and gas rights. And I always find it interesting. It usually surprises people in this part of the country where somebody does inherit some oil and gas rights that were left to them by their little old great-great-grandmother, who severed the rights at some point, sold the property, and then passed those along. People that had no idea they had them, they have them because great-great-granny decided that they were important and they should be maintained. So you have a lot to think about if you think you might want to sell your rights. So I hope this was a little interesting today. We talked a little bit about our production reports and certain wells. I always welcome input from listeners about what they might want to hear about in the future. This is, again, a brief recording. The first 3 recordings are available now on YouTube, so you can check them out online. I do see I have a question today. And if I can answer it, and if I can find it, because I want to say this is the first time someone's managed to get this up here. Okay, Jackie. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that I don't have, oh, hey, here we go. There's a request. Oh, I guess, let's see. I have a question from Cameron, and can you type the question in the box? I guess I still don't have the question thing figured out very well. And oh, here it is. Here it is. Read post. Here we go. Question answered. Okay, it's a hand raised. Oh, I'm going to have to apologize. Oh, here we go. Have you heard any news about the gas plant in Wyalusing? Oh, great question, Cameron. And nothing currently. I mean, it surfaces in the news every so often. If there's something very new out there, I don't know. But since you asked the question, I'm certainly going to look it up and see. But a lot of that's held up by regulations related to the plant they want to ship to down near Philadelphia, et cetera. So as far as I know, that's still on hold. But that's something I'll look into and see if there has been any change in that. Thanks for the question, Cameron. And okay, let's see if we have, I heard another beep. Okay, do you have contact information to consult? Yes, I do. So you're on the call. I'm not sure if you've gone to my website. You can email me at Jackie@GasWellGuru.com. And all my information is on my GasWellGuru website. You can contact me by phone or email. You can let me know what information you're looking for and see if I can help you. Thank you. Okay, so as I said, I need to run for an appointment. This was recorded again, and I will be getting that up on YouTube hopefully quicker. I did just consult with my grandson yesterday, and he's coming over to help me with getting videos up on YouTube in a more timely manner. So with that, I'm going to end the call today, and thank you for tuning in.